रूपं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते ताप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतुषे नमः वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. Can we all come a little bit closer? So I understand we're up to text 39 of the first chapter. Now just to recap, the first chapter is called what? Observing the armies on the battlefield. Now, as Srivas Prabhu has covered, this chapter is broken into two distinct sections. You have texts 1 through to about 20, 21, where this is the observation of the armies. And from the next verse onwards, about 22, 23, up to text 47, what you have is Arjuna's lamentation. Now it's interesting, 46, sorry. Now it's interesting that every chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is called yoga. Why is that? For example, this part about observing the armies on the battlefield is called Sainya Darshana Yoga. Sainya in Sanskrit means armies. Darshana means to see, and yoga means, what does the word yoga mean? To connect. It is to connect with Krishna. So how does observing armies connect to Krishna? Any thoughts? What were the parts of that section of the first chapter that provide a direct connection to Krishna? Because I could observe armies from World War II, and I did as a child. I used to pore over maps over how different countries or different armies would attack a particular battalion or a particular section of the field. What is the difference? Why is this Krishna conscious? And Krishna is there. But what are the symptoms that we saw coming through in the first chapter, in that section of the chapter? When the conch shells were blown, what happened?
I mean, the humility of Arjuna is demonstrated through that act, where he's not just thinking that he's going to win no matter what, but he's actually going out there and observing who are the people he's going to fight, and the compassion is coming out, not just mindless, he should be. So this act demonstration of compassion is there,
Hmm.
and the humbleness.
But the compassion comes in the second section, not in that first section when he's just beginning. In fact, the end of that section is Arjuna saying, Ratam stapayitve me achyuta. So take my chariot and put it in the middle of the battlefield. But before that, there are a whole series of verses that don't even involve Arjuna and Krishna. Not so much directly. Any thoughts? So the conch was there, the flag was there. So what happened when the conches were blown? Who initiated the blowing of the conches? Bhishma, right? So the grandsire of both sides of the army, and we'll go through a family tree. I heard that a few people were confused in terms of the names, but Bhishma was the one who had initiated the blowing of the conches. And when he blew the conches, it's mentioned that Duryodhana, who was the king of the opposing army, of the army opposing Krishna, he was enlivened, and then all the warriors on the side of the Kauravas blew their conches. Then the next verse says that Krishna and Arjuna blew their respective transcendental conches. So the point Prabhupada makes in the purport is Krishna and Arjuna's conches are called transcendental. That's the first sign. This is a Krishna conscious description of the battlefield. The second sign is when they actually blow their conches, and the rest of the Pandavas blow their conches, and the entire army follows, Pandava army follows and blows their conches. What happens? The hearts of the Kauravas shatter. Did that happen with the Pandavas? Is there any such description? No. So the blowing of the conches, Prabhupada says, indicates that the sense of security that the Kauravas had was in their own strength, which was shattered when in the face of a stronger presence. But for the Pandavas, even though technically speaking, the opposing army had an army that was at least about 1.5 times bigger than the Krishna's army. But nobody on Krishna's side had their heart shattered. Because where was their shelter? In Krishna. So that's the second part. Then, what are some of the names that are used for Krishna? Rishikesha, Govinda, Madhusudhana. And what are some of the comments that Prabhupada makes that indicate auspiciousness on the side of the Pandava army? Like, take the word name Madhava. What does the name Madhava mean? That's Madhusudhana. So what does Prabhupada say with regards to that comment? The goddess of fortune is personally present on the Pandava army. So fortune, auspiciousness, victory are present on the Pandava side. Then next, we see the chariot. Does anybody know how Arjuna's chariot was structured? His chariot was as wide, practically speaking, it looked like a small city. He had literally hundreds and thousands of weapons scattered there. The length of his flag was 1 mile, and it was not made of normal matter. It was made of a combination of fire and smoke, and it just blew. It was incapable of being destroyed. It was ridden by 100 pure white horses, each of whom, because in battle, if for example, your horses are killed, you are forced to stay in one place, which is a major disadvantage. The chariots in battlefield would move at a phenomenal pace, defeating the attempts of the opposing army to fire at you. But Arjuna's horses could, if any of them were killed, they were instantly replaced. This was a benediction his chariot had been received. So Prabhupada says, the combination of that invincible chariot, of that flag, which was extraordinary, of who was on the flag? Hanuman was on the flag. And Hanuman was associated with whom? Rama. And what does that indicate? Did Ramachandra win his battle? And who was the predominant fighter on Sri Ramachandra's side? Practically speaking, sometimes if you read Ramayana, it seems like Hanuman is being more glorified than Ramachandra is. But Prabhupada says Hanuman is a symbol of victory on even the Pandava side. So practically the way the Bhagavad Gita describes the array on the battlefield. It describes signs of auspiciousness for the Pandava side. So this is called Sainya Darshana Yoga. If you want to sell it. Now that hardly seems exciting, right? I mean, the result of the battle is already kind of known beforehand. There's a term for this in when people actually write such plays or critiques, but the result is already known. But then, what is the purpose of then describing the rest of the battle? Well, it is to now focus on how to more deeply enter into the message of the instance, of the pastime, and of the instructions. So that was the first section of chapter 1, extending up to verse number 20. So from 21, Arjuna begins to say, "O Krishna, please place me right in the middle of the battlefield." What was his motivation there? Sorry? To see both sides. Because, he wanted to see everybody who was arrayed on the battlefield. He knew that he was going to kill a lot of them. And he wanted to see both on Kaurava's side, who was going to die, and on his own side, who was going to die. And where did Krishna take him? What does the verse say? So if you go in verse 25 of the first chapter, what does it say? Who were the first two names mentioned that Arjuna saw? Bhishma and Drona. Now, of course, in the formation of an army, you can place your best fighters right in the middle. You can do that, but it wasn't always the case. You could place your best fighters in different parts of the battle. And there were many great fighters on the Kaurava side. Now, Krishna could have taken Arjuna to the right side to get kind of a panoramic view like this. He could have taken him left side or anywhere else. But he happened to take him exactly in front of two personalities. And those are the first two names mentioned in this verse. He took him right in front of Bhishma and Drona. Now, why do you suppose Krishna did that? Like, imagine you have to kind of do something really difficult. Like, almost if you have to slap, I won't say your parents, but say your grandparents in the face. The first thing I do, before you even build up the courage to do so, is to take you in front of your grandparents. And you remember all the good things I've done for you growing up. Now, what do you think is my motivation in doing that? Sometimes parents do this to stop their child from, committing something wrong, right? Just see the person you're trying to hurt. Don't they look so innocent? Aren't they? Isn't it? Can't this just be worked out? But sometimes if you're in front of someone you are actually trying to harm or do something to, you can literally break down. And that was what happened to Arjuna. So Krishna forced Arjuna's breakdown. It's very interesting. Arjuna is an eternal associate of the Lord. And Krishna placed him in the situation, therefore Prabhupada says, in order to pass on a great message for every one of us. So this is the real import of Sainya Darshana Yoga. It's the observation of the army wherein the auspiciousness and the imminent victory of Krishna's side is mentioned. And then Krishna's plan to share Bhagavad Gita with everybody is also mentioned. And it is by understanding this section of the Gita that we come to connect to Krishna in these two ways. Now the next section is called what? Arjuna's lamentation. In Sanskrit, this is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. What does the term Vishada mean? What does the term Vishada mean? Huh? Sad. Lamentation. So Arjuna Vishada Yoga literally means the yoga or the manner of connecting to Krishna through Arjuna's lamentation. Now, if somebody is really sad, how does that connect you to the Lord? Why is this section so important and so transcendental? Why is it important for us to read? Some people actually ask, can't I just skip the first chapter and go to the second chapter? Have you ever had that question before? And sometimes when we go out onto the street to distribute books, we tell people, okay, there are a lot of names in the first chapter. Just skip over those names and you can start in chapter 2 if you like. Prabhupada actually said the study of the Gita can begin with either chapter 2 or chapter 9. So when devotees distribute books, they tell someone, you can either start with chapter 2 or chapter 9. They usually go and say that. But then, what is the purpose of this second section? Why has Srila Vyasadeva included it as part of the Bhagavad Gita? Why do commentators spend so much time and effort commenting on this section?
Well, from yesterday's class in Nectar Devotionals, it explained that the majority of people come to Krishna consciousness when they're distressed. So at least you can invite, because obviously Arjuna is going through this for the purpose of a leader or a pastime. So then we can connect with that because the conditioned souls are in distress. Therefore they see how another person deals with that distress and then gets through it.
Yes, that's actually right. Thank you. What kind of distress did Arjuna have? Was it a standard distress? Oh, for example, I've got a stomach ache, or Krishna, help me. I mean, people can actually say that, right? Krishna, my leg is paining. Krishna, what have you desire? I may not be able to go for service today. But what kind of lamentation was it? Arjuna was actually at a... Sorry? Okay, I'm looking for a specific word though. Because in some sense, every lamentation comes from the bodily platform of life. So that's a specific situation. But is that the only situation where we would ever apply Bhagavad Gita? Like, for example, it's only when we are asked to kill our parents and grandparents. It's only then that we read Bhagavad Gita. So if we abstract what Arjuna was facing, what was he actually facing? A crisis. And there's sometimes a word that is used. You were saying something? Yes, he was confused. Both of you are actually right there. There's one word that seems to capture both together though. Have you heard the word, I'm at a crossroad in my life? A crossroad. And I see that, I understand where I'm supposed to go. But I kind of see that there are two choices. There's a fork here. And I don't know what will actually make me happy. Now, to understand this point, it's really important to understand that material existence places us in those situations where we actually don't know how to resolve the situation. For example, there are people who wish to acquire a particular kind of career. And they may try, this is their deepest desire. They want to get into a particular college, they want to get a particular kind of career. No matter what they do, they are not able to do so. What choices do they have? What do people normally do when they're completely frustrated? Yeah? Try and forget. They try and create an artificial reality around themselves. Or they try and bury themselves in some mode of intoxication which doesn't have to be alcohol. Like when I lost my first job, I started watching TV for practically like 10, 11 hours a day. Isn't this a form of intoxication? It's mindless. You basically just completely dull your mind. And you can go in this kind of, depression kind of phase, or what is the other alternative?
Take the right action.
Sorry?
Take the right action. What is
You can take the right action. What is right?
You look for the next job. Whatever one is wrong, that's fine.
Okay, let me put you in another crossroad. Yes, you can go for another job, and that's a material adjustment. Now, what if, for example, I have cancer, and my death is imminent in 6 months? All my plans, all my hopes are just crushed to pieces. What can I do?
You look for the reality. Yes, that is imminent is everyone. Okay, God is given us this much. That's fine. Look for God. And then think about God and right? That's it.
Okay, so what are you doing then?
The way you are thinking, connecting to God.
Okay, there's a particular word I'm looking for.
Accept the truth.
Accept it, yes, and? Okay, but I'm looking for another word. Inquiry might help. What happens?
Realization.
No, that doesn't happen automatically. The word I'm looking for is to transcend. If, for example, I'm losing my hair, and for a young kid, this is quite a traumatic event. And if I'm losing my hair and I don't know what else to do, there's no treatment that seems to work, I can go into depression, or because a part of me is dying. This is what it actually means. It can be a physical death, or it can be an emotional one. A part of me is actually dying. So to transcend means to shift one's identity from here to something beyond. Now, as you mentioned, I can go to another job. Okay, maybe a doctor's profession didn't work. Maybe I can become a dentist or a vet or some other natural therapist, and maybe that's a good choice. But in either case, it involves a shifting of one's identity. But here's the thing. No matter where I shift my identity in this world, at some point or the other, I am going to be disappointed. There are 3 things that happen. Can I rub this off? There are 3 things that happen when one tries for any kind of material experience in this world. The first is, do I have to get what I want? No. So, I don't get what I want. But some people do get what they want. Do they get it, and is it completely fulfilling? Always? No. So I get what I want, get it, but not completely satisfied. And if I get it, and it is completely satisfying, it is everything I ever wanted it to be. This could be a relationship, this could be a career, this could be anything we've ever wanted. What is the ultimate failure of my attempt? Sorry?
It's temporary.
Yeah, it has to be taken away. At some stage, everything that I've built my entire life working for has to leave. So the third thing is, I get it, I'm satisfied. But leave. At least at death. So someone who actually deeply understands this point, who really understands this point, they will want to shift their shelter from things of this world to asking, is there something else? There must be something more meaningful, something more substantial that I can, who am I? Why am I here? Who has put me in this situation? Why am I experiencing these things? And the Bhagavad Gita deals with this level. So one who has actually deeply understood this really takes value from Bhagavad Gita. Most people when they experience something like this, they write songs or anything basically to help them move on to something else. Okay, I couldn't get the girl I wanted or the boy I wanted, but there are others out there and I have to move on. I can make some adjustment in this world to understand what I want or to get, what I was hoping for. But these three things show the ultimate defeat of every kind of endeavor I make in this world. And for one who deeply understands this point, Bhagavad Gita is useful. Thank you. Now, what is the end result of Arjuna's lamentation? What verse describes after he's spoken his various reasons, and Srivas Prabhu has covered some of the reasons he spoke about, what is the end conclusion that he reaches? It's in 2.7, actually. So if you can go to the translation for 2.7. Can someone read the translation out aloud?
When the son of Kunti, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus.
Are we referring to chapter 2, text 7? Sorry, chapter 2, text 7. Sorry. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So the end result of all his lamentation was that he came to inquire from someone with knowledge. Someone who was not going to tell him, you can just look for another job. There are other people out there you can have a relationship with. There's so much more in life to live for. But who was going to help him understand there's something beyond this plane for you to grasp onto. Something that is real. What Arjuna was experiencing was, even though he was a spirit soul, he was trying to grasp onto something meaningful and substantial in a world that is always changing. The Bhagavatam describes this sometimes as, imagine you are standing in, you spin around, kids do this, and then you stand in one place. The whole world seems to shift around you. And it's just like the whole world is shifting and you're trying to grasp onto something substantial. Because this is the nature of the soul. So Arjuna had approached somebody who was going to help him find his actual need in a place where he could actually find it. And because this is the end result of Arjuna's lamentation, this section of the Bhagavad Gita is tremendously important. Everybody laments. But when the lamentation reaches this point, that lamentation is worthwhile. Now, what kind of qualities are needed for someone who reaches this point in their lamentation?
Compassion.
Why compassion? I can be a good person. I can feel for other people's suffering. But there are many people who actually empathize with what other people are going through. Do they always reach this kind of conclusion? Sorry?
One should be deserving.
Deserving? Okay, what does that mean? Who deserves it?
Arjuna was deserving to be a great warrior.
Okay.
So when he saw, then he went back.
Yeah, but I'm not a great warrior. Does that mean there's no hope for me? I can barely lift my leg above here.
Say the IIT, some student is very good in study.
Uh-huh.
He's preparing for IIT exam.
Right.
He will only have a back setback.
Oh, I see. So the higher your goal, the harder the fall. So you have to really like crash onto the ground and break every bone in your body, and then you will get, oh, I need something more. Nothing else is going to work. Hmm.
Because one person who doesn't have any potential, he won't have any
No, some people can, even with a small amount of lamentation, come here. Like, for example, in a family, nobody has to pass away. They can just have an argument with some of their family members, and then it's like, there's something wrong here. I need to go and look for something. They just come to a kirtan program, or they just attend a class. They get some inspiration. Oh, there's something of value here. It doesn't have to be the harder you fall, the deeper your inquiry.
in some of the cases happens with newly married couples. A lot of expectation.
Okay.
Doesn't go that way.
But it even happens for people who are completely satisfied in a relationship. There's just, there's, even after like 5-6 years of marriage, for example, people tend to feel, okay, but there must be something more. There's just a general sense of, okay, it's not everything that I wanted it to be. No big fight, no big expectations that were disappointed. But actually, there are kind of different paths that someone can do. Can I roll this up?
Yes.
Can you see if you can find a red pen inside the cover? That's a black pen. So when someone is in distress, when this person doesn't have culture, values, I'm talking about piety. When someone doesn't have piety, it will be hard for them to begin to inquire about something more than what they're just used to. Why is that? If inquiry implies introspection, right? To even begin to ask questions like, why is this happening to me? Or to seek that answer in a substantial source, there has to be some level at which there is an introspective mentality. This mood of wanting to look or being willing to look within, rather than one's senses going completely outwards and being distracted by every kind of sense object, implies that there is a degree of the mode of goodness, or you can say of piety, of religious piety in the past. So if someone is pious, one will inquire. Everybody inquires actually, but the right kind of inquiry, of the right kind of person. Everyone will say, I'm in distress, what should I do? And what they mean by that is, can you help me adjust the circumstance so I can make it work? That's the majority of how people inquire. So it's, how do I make it work? But the inquiry that says, is there something more? Or where this is the basis of all of the inquiry. This requires piety. Remember, the underlying realization is those three things. With this kind of inquiry, they approach a spiritualness. And this is the value of that section, Arjuna Vishad Yoga, or Arjuna's lamentation. Now, what were the kind of reasons that we came to see in Arjuna's lamentation? What has Arjuna said so far? What was his initial reaction? So he felt his body.
His body started shaking and he saw it.
Okay. But his body started shaking because the very first thing, what does the verse say? This is text 27. overwhelmed with compassion. If someone is, was he right to want to fight? He was, wasn't he? He was justified in wanting to fight. But when he saw the other party, and even though they were wrong, he felt like, I can be hurting them. What does that tell you about this person? What quality does it imply in this individual? Empathy. He's not just wanting to, he's not focused on what he just wants. He's much more focused on what other people feel, what their experience is like. He wants others also to be happy. So it implies that he's willing to sacrifice immediate gain for something later on. He's thinking from a longer term perspective. And this is characteristic of Arjuna's points all the way through. He's able to put himself in another person's shoes and say, well, they're going to go through all this. And later on, what does he say? In text 31, I don't see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman, nor can I desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. So what is the specific reason that Arjuna is exhibiting here? He is talking about his own happiness, right? So in that sense, it is focused on his own happiness, and this is the characteristic of every conditioned soul. But it is still quite a refined thing, isn't it? What he's trying to say is, I don't want something just for myself. This is what the opposing army wanted. Duryodhana, he actually said, because the Pandavas tried to stop the war. Krishna on the Pandava side tried to stop the war. And he said, you give the Pandavas 5 villages. They are rulers. They have to rule. They have to govern. Give them 5 villages to govern, and that's okay. There doesn't have to be war. Duryodhana said, I don't want to give them enough land to put in a single needle into the ground. That was the degree of his own selfishness, of his own envy of the Pandavas, and his own mood of everything has to revolve around me. But Arjuna's, he's also expressing the same thing about happiness, but he's saying he can't be happy if all his friends and family are destroyed, meaning he wants to experience the pleasure of sharing, of relationships. So he is talking about his own happiness, but it's a more refined version of the same thing. And then in text 36, what does he say? Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. Do you know how many people died in that battle, by the way? You try to get a figure?
I remember Bhakti Shastri saying 350 million people.
The numbers are varying. Prabhupada in one lecture says 500 and something million, 565 odd million. Bhakti Shastri is 300 million. A lot of people. What is the population of Australia, by the way?
23 million.
Yeah, so how many times more people are we killing? 8 times more, 6 times more people? But it's like you're wiping out Australia 6 to 8 times. Now, if you had to become, for example, the Prime Minister of Australia, and to do that you have to wipe out Australia 8 times, how would you feel? Would you want to do it? Can you imagine someone who wants power so much that they are willing to do this? That was Duryodhana's side. That was what Duryodhana was willing to do. But for the Pandavas side, Arjuna was thinking, by the way, do you know how many years the Pandavas ruled after they won the battle? 36 years. 36 years after the battle, Krishna decided to stop his pastimes, or stop manifesting his pastimes in this world. And the moment Krishna decided to do that, the Pandavas said, we have no more business here. We are following Krishna to his next place of pastimes. And they went away. But so just think about this. 36 years, you're going to kill 500 something or 300 something million people. Is it worth it? And Arjuna was thinking, for those 500 million people who are killed, how many years am I going to have to suffer in hell? If you kill one person, how many years do you have to go to jail? Lifetime.
Depends upon the... Yeah.
So can you imagine, if one's lifetime is, say, 70, 80 years, so 70, 80 years multiplied by 500 or 300 million, how big is that? Several billions of years one has to suffer. So if you were told you have several billions of years of suffering and 36 million years, for example, 36 years of pleasure, would you accept it? So that is Arjuna's point. What does this imply? He's thoughtful. Long-term thinking. He's thoughtful. This is the characteristic of someone who is able to inquire about spiritual life. And that is what is coming through in this lamentation. So let's go to text 39, which describes his fourth reason for not wanting to fight. Can we read the Sanskrit? Kulakshaye pranashyanti kula dharma sanatanaha dharme nashte kulam kritsnam adharmo bibabatyuta. Can someone read the translation?
With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in religion.
So what Arjuna is expressing here is that family tradition plays a large part in inculcating the right culture and values for future generations to come. In our society, we often speak about creating a heritage for our descendants. What they mean by that is to create a part of nature that is pristine, that they can enjoy, having proper water resources or having proper nature resources. They also speak about creating a financial legacy for our descendants to enjoy. So this is how we understand creating a heritage. Arjuna's idea of creating a heritage is to maintain a family culture where elders are respected, where worship of the Lord is just a natural part of the daily routine in the family, where you have a whole community of people who don't just, it's not just like you have a couple who decide to independently separate themselves from their parents or everybody else and live their own individualistic life, but rather they are part of an entire community of people who live to serve, who are living to help each other, and that way pass culture. Has anybody seen such families? Yeah? It actually exists. And I actually, when I was in India, we'd gone to the house program of one individual, one gentleman, whose father had passed away. And the family was very close-knit. They had, I think the father had maybe 5 or 6 children, all of whom were living in that one huge mansion. It was like an entire apartment complex, actually. And in that apartment complex, in different units, of course, you had individual families, you had many grandchildren. But they were all held together by the culture, by the values of that one head of the family. And even as he was passing away, he was completely conscious. They all gathered around his bed, and he was giving them final instructions. And the instructions he was giving them was in terms of how they should worship the Lord, how they should be good to people, how they should use their money for charity. And afterwards, when I was talking to them, because we'd gone there to do kirtan and one devotee was giving class on Bhagavad Gita, but one of this particular gentleman who had invited us was telling us about the lessons their grandfather had imbibed and how deeply these lessons had become embedded into their heart. So isn't this incredible? And isn't this so completely different from the kind of society we often grow up in? If, for example, couples have a fight in this culture, the first thing they would do is just go to their superiors and say, the wife might say, he's doing this. And the mother would call the son and say, why are you doing this? Why are you troubling my daughter? She would say. And then they would resolve the fight. And often the husband would say, I could have myself resolved it. Why did you have to go to my mother? Now I have to show my face in a sorry way. But this is often how the culture worked. And of course, you may have differences of opinion, but still, the family traditions used to be carried out in this way. Now, a lot of these joint family structures have split because, first, the heads of the families are not strong and they're not able to impart this kind of culture. Two, each of individual families within this joint family wish to have their own individual space, their own individual lifestyle. Some wish to eat meat, some wish to follow a different kind of diet, some want to raise their children in different ways, others don't want to have to take care of other children, they just want to kind of take care of their life, have a career. That mood of service is replaced with a very individualistic way of life. And many of these joint families split.
Where is this coming from, if I don't mind interrupting?
What do you mean?
Where is this logic?
Kulakshayi pranashanti kula dharma sanatana. So that's the verse we're discussing. So Arjuna is saying, with the destruction of the dynasty, I'm going to kill all these people here. And all these people are heads of families. They are fathers and heads under heads of families. They are sons under these fathers, under heads of families. And I'm going to wipe out every single one of them. So who is there to pass on any kind of culture? It will just be lost. And all of this tradition which has been built up, which is keeping people, giving people good culture, good values, all of that is going to be damaged and destroyed. So here's what Prabhupada says, purport. In the system of Varnashrama institution, there are many principles of religious traditions to help members of the family grow properly and attain spiritual values. The elder members are responsible for such purifying processes in the family, beginning from birth to death. But on death of the elder members, such family traditions of purification may stop, and the remaining younger family members may develop irreligious habits and thereby lose their chance for spiritual salvation. Therefore, for no purpose should the elder members of the family be slain. Who has replaced elders right now? What items of influence often replace elders' guidance? Who here learned at the lap of their grandfather or grandmother? Like poetry, culture, literature, religion. Who has learned that? Yeah? Grandmother. And are they among the fondest memories that you have? And imagine you don't have that. Imagine kids now go to daycare or watch TV or learn from their friends. It's a totally different culture. Text 40. Let's read the Sanskrit. Adharma bibavat Krishna pradushyanti kulastriyaha strishu dushtha suvashneya jayate varna shankara. Translation.
When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vishnu, comes unwanted progeny.
So what Arjuna is saying here is that the Kauravas, or the army opposing Krishna's side, they are acting on irreligious principles. They want to break everything for their own gain. And because of what they're doing, they're inducing us to do the same thing. This was described 2 verses previously. And they're forcing us to be irreligious. Now, when we ourselves are irreligious and we destroy everything resembling culture, you basically have a group of men and women who don't have any basis on which to build values other than their own desires and feelings. What is the issue with this?
The female don't have male.
They can have males.
No, they have a number of different.
Okay, that's one thing. Okay. Okay, but go into actually what happens in their mind. So you suddenly have a group of people whose only basis for making decisions is what they feel. Did you know that 20, 30 years ago, to wear short mini skirts was considered inappropriate? Now, is it considered appropriate or inappropriate? If just kind of casual walking on the street, it's okay. Who has changed those values? Society, like we've just become accustomed to it. What is the basis for that change? I just feel it. Previously, marriage was a religious institution. Now, is marriage necessary? No. They've made it out to be that a relationship outside of a commitment to the Lord is okay. Who has made that change? Our feelings. Who has made abortion okay? Public sentiment. If public sentiment is the only guide to making decisions, you can just about say everything is right or wrong depending on what the general consensus is. But does that really define what is right and what is wrong? What is right and what is wrong? What is the real standard? No. What is really right and what is really wrong? Why?
Because that's authentic, it's coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay, but then why are the principles in the scriptures right? Yes, they are coming from the Lord. I'm looking for a slightly different answer. You are right. Because they bring us closer to who we actually are as spirit soul. So much of what we do, if I wear miniskirts or if I eat all kinds of things, including non-vegetarian items, do I go closer to who I actually am or do I go further away? I further cover myself up and my real identity up. But the rules of the scriptures are meant, yes, it may be like restrictions or do's and don'ts, but in actual fact, they're there to protect us and bring us back to our actual nature so that we can actually be happy. Now, who's going to teach this culture and who's going to teach these traditions? How many brahmacharis, how many men go to the brahmachari ashram? So how many of them, have you heard of the term man-child? What does that mean? And have you seen that? In actual fact, there are some people who say it is not worth having a relationship, ladies who say, with a man who's less than about 30 years old. Have you heard that before? 25, 30? Because then they're just having to become a de facto mother for a person who doesn't want to grow up. But men would actually go to an ashram. I learned responsibility by going to the ashram. Before that, I was really irresponsible and I used to mess around a lot. But after coming from the ashram, I learned what responsibility means. I learned what it means to actually take care of a wife, a family, in all respects, emotionally, physically, spiritually. But men actually learn responsibility by studying, by Shastra, by learning outside of their immediate. Boys in general are quite independent in nature, and they need often to be trained by someone outside their home. Hardly anyone goes to the ashram. Now what this verse says is, and Prabhupada will make this comment in the purport, let's just read through. Good population in human society is the basic principle for peace, prosperity, and spiritual progress in life. The Varnashma religion's principles were so designed that the good population would prevail in society for the general spiritual progress of state and community. So what are some of these Varnashma religion's principles? Brahmacharya ashram, that boys and girls come together after marriage, not before, etc. Such population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. So now the topic is being turned to women. We've described the man's side, but now what is being described is that ladies have to develop a specific value that enables this society to function in a smooth way. Men have to learn responsibility, and they have to be able to become proper guides. As children are very prone to be misled, women are similarly very prone to degradation. Therefore, both children and women require protection by the elder members of the family. By being engaged in various religious practices, women will not be misled into adultery. According to Chanakya Pandit, women are generally not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. So the different family traditions of religious activities should always engage them, and thus their chastity and devotion will give birth to a good population eligible for participating in the varnashram system. Did some of that seem offensive?
Prabhuji, I'm not saying that I disagree, but when I go out and talk to people, I often get this as a very strong debating where I lose myself.
I know. No, but the thing is that one has to understand what this statement means. Okay, let's look at this sentence. According to Chanakya Pandit, women are generally not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. By the way, this refers not to men and women, to the feminine principle and the masculine principle. You can get men who are like women and women who are like men.
It's not a body concept.
Previously, what used to happen was that men were actual men, women were actual women. But now what you often get is a mixture of natures. And so you don't get men who are responsible. By the way, let's go to this term intelligent. What does the term intelligent mean? Does it mean IQ? Because if that's the definition, the statement is not right. In IQ terms, women and men, they do things differently maybe, but they're equally capable. Women are generally better in spatial skills, in visualization. They are usually much better at emotional connection. You give them a particular situation, they can often figure things out. Often, actually, in a family situation, women tend to make more rational decisions than men. Isn't that true? You will see men who become emotionally very, very confused and attached to their, I can see nods here. I experience it with my family. My own parents are like this. My father is so attached to us as kids, myself and my sister, and his own mother, that when it comes to us, he can't think rationally. He just, okay, it has to be like, it's an instant reaction. I got sick, take him to the doctor, take him here, take him there. And my mother was like, hang on, my mother's a homeopathic doctor. Like, hang on. Just, he's taking some medicine, give him some time to rest. You don't understand. He's dying. And my mother's like, calm down. I was like, Daddy, stop screaming, please, I've got a headache. But men actually kind of, has anyone experienced this? Everyone has seen this. And I'll tell you why. There are two sides to everybody's brain. There's the rational side, and there's the emotional side. Men can either be completely rational, detached, and objective, or they can be completely emotional. Women are both at the same time. So, when women, for example, interact with other members of the public, often, for example, you have a conversation, two families get together, and you'll often, and I don't know if you might have experienced this, you must have experienced it. You come back from a meeting, and often the ladies will say, what did she mean by that? Did she mean to say that, my cooking was not good? Did she mean this? The husband will say, no, I think the context was this, and he will explain. Has anybody experienced this? Yeah? But what is happening there? The lady tends to take things maybe a little bit more, it's connected to an experience. And it's hard for her to disentangle any situation that she's in from the emotions that are reposed there. Will a lady ever keep a mobile phone from a former boyfriend or lover if that lover ditches her? It's hard because there's an emotional attachment to this phone. Men tend to keep that phone. Like, it's a good phone, I'll keep it. And anyway, she gave it to me for free. I get it, free phone. See, men are much, in that sense, they tend to think a little bit more like in a detached way. So, in general situations, when it doesn't involve the man becoming completely attached and irrational, it is helpful for a lady to have someone she can get feedback from. Does that make sense? Who can, just say, no, it's not like this, don't worry, don't get too frustrated, it's not like this. But when a man becomes attached, he becomes completely useless. And then the lady becomes the backbone of the family and able to make rational decisions. So, this is what the Vedic standard of intelligence is. If someone can just hear and understand, this is called first-class intelligence. So the men just hear that I am a spirit soul. I get it. This is a real man. This is why men would go to Gurukul. because they just hear from their spiritual master. They don't have to experience life. That experience is automatically manifest in their heart when they hear this principle. The second is to hear and see others. This is called second-class intelligence because it involves some level of, it requires more than just hearing. One has to kind of experience life a little bit to come to some understanding. Third is where you experience it yourself. You experience this yourself, and you have the intelligence to work through that experience and extract principles from that experience. Now, ladies are phenomenal at this. Does anybody agree with that, by the way? You can experience a situation and then reflect and work through. For ladies, like when they're making garlands for Radha Gopinath, they actually feel so much more connected and they draw realizations from that experience. Isn't that true? For me, I will sit in a class and I will start thinking in an abstract way. Okay, so this is the philosophy, this is the framework, this is how I put things together. Okay, I get it. Now I have to serve. It's not that from the experience necessarily I draw other things. Often for ladies, the experience of the class, the experience of connecting to the speaker, to the different devotees, is part of the learning experience. For men, it is not like that. It tends to be much more abstract. So the definition of intelligence according to the Vedas is abstract thinking. Thinking in abstraction, thinking in, if you'd like, philosophical terms. Now, ladies can understand philosophy sometimes much better than men. That's not the point. The point is how they get that philosophy. Even when, have you noticed a difference between when men speak and ladies speak and give Bhagavatam class or give classes? What is the difference you see? Ladies will often give more understandable because they give life examples, right? They speak about their life and it's connected and integrated. Men, even if they get it, they will speak in abstract terms. Have you noticed that? Why is that? Yes?
No, I'm just thinking.
Okay.
She's visualizing it.
I mean, for me, sometimes it's like if someone, anyway, like yesterday also, Ghanshyam Prabhuji was talking about that we should hear from every speaker, we should be willing to come to every class thinking, what message does Krishna have for us? And I was like, but the speaker needs to have something to give something. If the speaker is empty, what is he going to give us? And that's why people are apprehensive before coming for a Bhagavatam. They don't want to make an offense to Srimad Bhagavatam. And so,
well, what's interesting is when the speaker gives like visualization, like for example, sometimes my spiritual master will say, imagine you're in front of Radha Gopinath and you're making a wonderful garland that you wish to offer to him. Now, everyone will relish this, but that experience is more important for ladies. Whereas I'm sitting in the class thinking, okay, but then why is Krishna used this particular word in this verse? What is the Sanskrit meaning of that word? How do I understand a principle from this word? I don't know, can men relate to this? Yeah? But anyway, but this is the understanding of intelligence. So, when Prabhupada says that women are less intelligent, what it means is they have to go through an experience in order to understand. So what Prabhupada is saying is, if women learn this basic principle of chastity, rather than going through many life's experiences before they come to some conclusion, if they are trained in a family environment, women are trained at home, men are trained in an ashram. But if women are trained at home, through the culture, through the affection, through the relationships, that is the best way by which they can assimilate the knowledge that is being presented to them. And for ladies, that culture, in many Indian families, you will see Lakshmi Puja, Shivaratri, and men will often, they will say, why do I have to put all these lamps here? This is just okay, this is what they do. But they may often ask, often men will be more interested in things like, fasting, or but ladies want the culture. They love the lamps. They love the presentation of, the shelf or the altar with dolls, or going to people's houses, giving prasad, taking prasad. That whole culture is much more important to them. And it's through that culture they feel nourished. How many here have learned a culture at their home that they take and put it into their, for example, next house? So like when, for example, boys and girls learn a culture at their parents' house, which of the two is more likely to take it and put it into the next home they live in?
It depends upon the particular interest that you're talking about. Like if the guys really like what they have been taught by their mom and dad, then definitely they'll continue this throughout their lifetime.
So for example, if your mother has been putting incense in around the house, putting lamps on Diwali around the house, or worshipping the Lord, singing particular prayers, men tend to imbibe the principle and they may apply it differently, but ladies will often replicate that culture because it gives them that sense of comfort and security. So what Prabhupada is saying here is this. In the purport, what he says is, by being engaged in various religious practices, women will not be misled. In other words, that culture, if it is embedded in ladies at home, it will be taken and they will apply it faithfully. It is not so much the philosophy that is necessary, even though they can be completely philosophical. They can intellectually rationalize anything. But for them, ultimately, at heart, they will take the philosophy and they will apply it. Sorry, they will take the culture and they will apply it. And the culture itself is so satisfying and nourishing, it will protect them from any other desires. For men, that culture is not enough. So even though this purport is focused on women, there is a learning for women and there's a separate learning for men. And that's referenced in other purports. For men, they have to be philosophically trained by someone other than their parents. They have to be chastised. I can't tell you the number of times I was chastised by my spiritual master, to the extent that sometimes it took me 8 months to recover from a particular chastisement. And he once saw me looking a little sad, and he told me, "I'm sorry I have to chastise you like this, but you are so thick-skinned that to get something through, I have to sometimes use guided missiles or even nuclear bombs. And that's the only way I can crack through that head of yours." For ladies, this is much harder to grasp. Much harder to take this kind of chastisement. But men can take it, and this is how they learn.
How come, this is true exactly what you're saying, we can't take it, men can, it doesn't affect them, like they just not attached to them, but it's okay.
But for ladies, if they hear a critical word, they may never come to that class again. See, and the thing is, if ladies serve, the ladies have a natural inclination for service. They want to please someone, they'll call them for prasad, they'll want to give them things, make things for them, cook for them, right? Now, traditionally, you would have spiritual masters who were sannyasis, right? Now, men can become personal servant for sannyasis or renunciates. Can women do that? Even though it is their most natural nature, it doesn't happen that way. But what if their husband is capable of guiding their wife? It's like you get married to your own spiritual master. I know it sounds weird, but what if ladies marry their own, because their husband is worthy of being served. The husband is guiding them or is capable of training them, facilitating their desires. It's not that women, cannot work, should not work, cannot do any service in the temple. But men just act as the backbone and they facilitate as much as the Lord facilitates the living entity's desires. The man, as a representative of the Lord, facilitates his wife's desires. And Also, he ensures that she goes forward with his own training. So when the man does this, and the lady, her value is, okay, I will just follow my husband. So that's why Prabhupada says, such population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of his womanhood. This is the lady's part. The men's part is that they have to be properly trained and responsible. The lady's part is she just has to follow such a responsible man. The problem actually occurred not with the ladies, with the men, because they became useless. Around the 1950s, 1960s, you had families in Australia who were very much like what is being described here. But often you had men who used to, I think the wife was kind of seen as someone bound in the house, as someone who was in either kitchen or in the bedroom, or with the children. This was the general role. But if you go back 100, 200 years ago, men and women did everything together. For example, if you had a merchant, they would have their own shop. Husband and wife would work together in that shop. They would live above or somewhere close by, and they would work in the shop. When you had industrialization, men went somewhere else, and women were stuck at home. So this is not a natural way of life. Right now, what we are seeing is a product of so-called economic growth or industrialization, globalization. But this is not actually the natural thing. When you had brahmanas who would perform puja, the wife would often take care of many, many aspects of the puja. The husband may sit in the front and perform the puja, but his strength would be his wife also. It would be a joint effort. For, you know who was the CEO of the Pandavas' kingdom? Did you know that? She was the only one who knew everything about the treasury. She knew everything about who was employed in the palace. She knew how to distribute funds there. She was an administrator par excellence. Who says women can't be CEOs? But her husbands were the ones standing in the front as a figurehead. So sometimes people ask the question, can a lady be a temple president? Yes, they can. But there's a risk if they are directly appointed to the post and given the label of temple president, because the moment anybody has a problem, they will go and take it out on her. Rather, if she's able to do all the services of the temple president, the husband may just have the figurehead of temple president. The lady still does everything. Everybody knows she does everything. But if they have a problem, they go and yell at him. And he can take it. You see, so this is how a society is supposed to be set up. Because a man is not going to willingly surrender to anybody. Similarly, it is not expected for a lady to just surrender to anybody. But just as the Lord properly facilitates the position of any living entity, similarly it is the duty of the husband to properly facilitate the desires of his wife, to make sure she is satisfied, has the avenue for growth. And because he can be a little bit more objective when it comes to social circumstances, keep her balanced. She keeps him balanced in other ways, particularly inside the house. Does anybody still have any questions about this?
Is it because they're very emotional, that's why Chanakya Pandit...
Both men and women are emotional. Both men and women are emotional. What Chanakya Pandit says is that men can think in abstract terms. So when it comes to philosophy, they hear this material world is a place of suffering. They just get it. But women can't just connect it to that like that. They'll say, but what about my family? And what about everything else that I have? But then if women learn to become attached to the family of Radha Gopinath, then that culture, that experience will make them even more committed devotees than men can ever be. You understand? I mean, women connect to the experience and the culture and the family, the social aspect. But it is not necessary to just... In Vedic culture, people would go from family life to renunciation. And in that sense, men were able to kind of jump there. But we know that there's something higher than renunciation. That's bhakti. Once someone asked Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, a brahmachari, he asked a question in such a way that it appeared that he was criticizing married couples. He was a brahmachari. So Maharaj just looked at him and said, do you have a problem with married couples? Because if you do, you're not going to Goloka Vrindavan. Do you know of any brahmacharis in Vrindavan? They're all married there. All young children. So it is not that marriage is a problem, being a woman or a man is a problem. The thing is that they each have individual needs, and they each have their individual mentalities and psychology. So the Vedic culture is set up to enable the best progress for each according to their respective mentalities. So it is not like, why can't women go to an ashram? Well, it's like, I don't know what a crude way of saying this is. It's like saying, it's like a man saying, it was what I said when I was a kid, why do women get to wear all the pretty clothes? Why can't men wear the pretty clothes? Well, they need it. You can wear pretty clothes in a different way. But the thing is that men learn in a particular way, women learn in another way. But both, the objective is to learn. And if you learn, what is the problem? Any other questions?
Sorry, Prabhu, regarding whether women can be a CEO or no.
Yes.
So in that aspect, there are some women who are CEO of a
Right.
big company.
Yes.
So in that aspect, if we are looking from the point of view of Bhagavad Gita, it's not the body, the consciousness is going, and the lady is becoming the CEO. It's from the mentality that the lady has the emotional as well as the rational thinking, which is making her CEO, and she's quite persistent in that.
But I wouldn't put it that way. I mean, men can be CEOs, women can be CEOs.
Yeah.
They will do it differently, but they can both be CEOs. The point being made here is that it is not so much the activity that is important, it is just how they do it that is
And
different.
How they take it.
How they take it.
Negative and positive and
Right.
discusses and the fall downs, how
Right.
a woman takes it
Right,
and how a man takes it.
right.
So should I conclude it like that, that because a lady is able to emotionally and rationally think, she's able to sustain in that particular...
Well, men can sustain also. It's not
No,
about...
it's just about women.
Oh, okay.
Not about women.
Hmm.
Obviously men can, and that's why we say it's a male-dominating world and things like that.
Yes.
But when we give an example of saying women are also CEOs and they are consistent in their levels, that's because they have these two aspects in their intelligence.
So do you mean to say that that a person could not be consistent if they don't have both at the same time?
Yeah.
Well, aren't men consistent as CEOs?
So that's where they fall down.
From CEOs?
Yeah.
Both women and men stay for some time and they leave. Like Gail Kelly was the CEO of Westpac she was the CEO of St. George Bank for a few years. She transferred over to Westpac. She brought St. George as part of Westpac. She was one of the best CEOs they had. Ian Narev was the CEO of Commonwealth Bank. He had sustained there for 9 years. He was the financially most rewarded CEO as well. They both can be equally successful. They just do things differently, that's all.
So how should you explain to those people who try to debate on this particular sentence of Chanakya Pandit that women are less intelligent?
How I described it, they just do things differently. Men, see, from the point of view of being able to grasp the difference between body and soul, and just living a life of renunciation, because that part of that life is being able to live away from society. And so in that sense, men are less enamored by society, friendship, and love, which is they are less attracted by, if you like, material experiences. But ladies need those experiences. So because they are more prone to material experiences, they are called less intelligent and not trustworthy, from the point of view that they can be easily swayed if they get a better experience somewhere else. But you give them a spiritual experience, and because that experience will completely satisfy them, they don't need to go anywhere else. Because Prabhupada in some purposes also said that a Vaishnavi is different from a standard man or woman in society. He said, our female disciples are among the most intelligent people. You see their balance. Anybody who has seen like Urmila Mataji, Lakshmi Mani Mataji, Narayani Mataji can never say they're unintelligent. Who would dare come and say that in front of them? I mean, it's not just a question of respect. It's actually their experience can blow people away. You stand before Urmila Mataji, she'll cut you down with her intelligence, with the sharpness of her logic. People flock to her seminars to hear her speak Manashiksha or the art of parenting and so many other things that she can share. Her experiences, however, you will see that in her lectures, she will speak so much about her experience. She has studied, she has a PhD, Dr. Edith something, I forget her last name. But it's Edith Best. So she has taken all of that knowledge and she translates it into a practical living experience. She connects it to her experience and she tries to connect it to other people's experience. Now you contrast that with someone like Bhaktivedipurna Maharaj. He's also very well read. He's deeply philosophical. When he sits on the Vyasasan, what kind of class does he give? Philosophical, abstract, but principles are deep. So it's just a different manner in which people connect to things and express it. The reason ladies are called less trustworthy is because they're more enamored by the material experience, because they need an experience. That's part of their psychology. But if you translate that with the spiritual experience, then it becomes a great positive.
I think what he's talking is making sense. I'll just explain it today. Like when we were growing up, I had a brother. He wasn't charmed by the outside world. He didn't want to try things, but I was always, I want to straighten my hair. I want to put color in my hair. My brother didn't have those things. Oh, he's doing this, he wanted to do that. Did you experience that? She has shorter hair, I want shorter hair. We do that.
No, I'm just trying to get more debate sentences to put it for the people, because I myself has felt that shortage in my own intelligence to explain them. This is not exactly what Chanakya Pandit or Prabhupada's purpose is.
Because you have to take a lot of things put together. So why don't we do this? Let's carry on with the class.
Yes.
And we can discuss this after the class in more detail for anybody who's interested. By the way, does this satisfy the majority of what people felt? Okay, how many are still, like personally, they feel something? Please raise your hand. Because this trouble, I read these purports when I was a kid, like 14, 15 years old. And it troubled me from then until I was able to find an answer until like 23, 24. So, you know.
I just put it ease just to understand the intelligence is the same, but the nature is different. And that is something that Mangalu gives wonderful talks about. Both strengths, but different strengths. But the intelligence is the same. If you refer to the CEO, she might do a really great job, but at the end of the day, it's probably quite grating on a female to be in that position for such a long time. Period of nature is different.
Yes, that is true. But like in Draupadi's case, she was always if she felt it was too much, she would go to the Pandavas. And she would express it to Yudhishthira and, Bhima, Arjuna. Typically, Yudhishthira was the highest intelligence. She would go to him, express things to him. He would, calm her down if she was flustered or anything, or if it became too much. And then he would give her confidence. Okay, then she would go ahead with the service. And this is what often happens.
Exactly what you said. Coming from India, women are worshipped. I'm coming from a family where women are just worshipped. Like men are not even seen in the family. Seriously, I'm coming from a family where women are just like number one. It's like in India, like, and then we read this, it can be difficult.
Yeah.
But now,
It makes sense. I mean, you take many of Prabhupada's purports and put them together. You also put it together with what Prabhupada, how he dealt with his female disciples. It's very, very different. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. So the basic point mentioned here is that men have a role, women have a role, but particularly if you don't have family traditions, women are more affected than men because this is where they are trained. And so therefore, the women of the family, they become prone to material experiences which can then take them away. This person is so nice to me, he speaks nicely, let me go with him, but then that fellow may just, temporarily be with her, give her a child and go away. And so that results from the degradation of womanhood, from the loss of their innocence, from the loss of their culture, From the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. And Prabhupada here will also just one point to note. He will say, as children are very prone to be misled, women are similarly very prone to degradation. That's not an insult. What it's saying is that the same basic innocence is there between children and women. Same basic innocence is there. They will easily believe what they are told. You take a child, you offer candy, you give candy like this, you can actually literally take them away. For ladies, you speak sweetly, you are nice to them, you give them an emotionally satisfying experience. They can even follow someone who is maybe taking them astray, because they're more attached to the person rather than whether they're going the right path or not. Therefore, both children and women require protection by elder members of the family. By engaging in various religious practices, women will not be misled into adultery. According to Chanakya Pandit, women are generally not very intelligent. In other words, they don't think in an abstract way, therefore not trustworthy. In other words, what comes to their mind when in a situation is more the experience rather than philosophical truths. So if the experience is there, they may give up some apparent abstract principle, go after the experience. But if they have the experience of Krishna consciousness, they will always stick there. Is that sentence clear? So the different family traditions of religious activity should always engage them, and thus their chastity and devotion will give birth to a good population eligible for participating in the Varnashram system. The mother is the first guru of a child. She plays the principal role in grooming children. On the failure of such Varnashram dharma, naturally the women become free to act and mix with men, and thus adultery is indulged in at the risk of unwanted population. Irresponsible men also provoke adultery in society, and thus unwanted children flood the human race at the risk of war and pestilence. Let's move on. Text 41. Shankaro narakaye va kulagnanam kulasya cha patanti pitaro hiyesham lupto pindodaka kriya. Translation.
The increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life both for the family and for those who destroy the family traditions. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped.
So part of being within a family is also this mood of caring for one's ancestors. It's not just an individualistic society. So the verse I would refer you to is, if you go to the next page, Prabhupada quotes this verse from Bhagavatam. Devarshi bhutapta nrinam pitrinam nakin karo nayam rinicha rajan sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam kato mukundam pariritya kartam. So it says, Deva means the demigods, Rishi means sages, Bhuta means other living entities, Apta means relatives or family members, Nrinam means human beings, Pitranam means forefathers. So all of these people we are indebted to upon being born. We're indebted to society because it's because of society that I have such facilities, the council library, the parks, and the government around me. I'm indebted to my relatives for the family structure they've created, even indirectly finances may be involved. Rishis, through whom I get spiritual instructions. Devas, from whom I get rain, sunshine, wind. But I'm indebted, I'm taking all these things. And as a human being, I am required to repay my debt to all of these personalities. To the Devas, the typical debt that is paid is in terms of yajna and performances of sacrifices. To Vishnu, then offered to the demigods. To Rishis, it is about serving them when they come to one's household. You hear from them. To serve living entities, one may offer charity, one may dig wells, or one may sponsor production of schools, etc. Apta, one generally takes care of one's relatives if they're in distressing situations, etc. But if one is a servant of Mukunda, Prabhupada says, and has completely given himself to the service of Mukunda, then all of these things are automatically taken care of because one has taken on the highest responsibility of serving the Lord. So go back to the purport, the beginning of the purport. Prabhupada will now address the things for forefathers. If one's forefathers have left this world and are in a difficult situation in their next life, Prabhupada says, according to the rules and regulations of fruitive activities, there is a need to offer periodical food and water to the forefathers of the family. This offering is performed by worship of Vishnu because eating the remnants of food offered to Vishnu can deliver one from all kinds of sinful reactions. Sometimes the forefathers may be suffering from various types of sinful reactions, and sometimes some of them cannot even acquire a gross material body and are forced to remain in subtle bodies as ghosts. Thus, while remnants of prasadam food are offered to forefathers by descendants, the forefathers are released from ghostly or other kinds of miserable life. So this is one of the parts that is naturally inculcated in a family tradition. You destroy family tradition, you even destroy the health of the forefathers. Text 42. Dosher eite kulagnanam varna shankarakarake utsyādyante jati dharma kula dharmascha shashvataha. Translation.
By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated.
Community projects for the four orders of human society, combined with family welfare affairs, as they are set forth in the institution of Sanatana Dharma or Varnashram Dharma, are designed to help the human being to attain his ultimate salvation. Therefore, breaking of the Sanatana Dharma tradition by irresponsible leaders of society brings about chaos in that society, and consequently people forget the aim of life, Vishnu. So, if such culture is facilitated by leaders, people encourage this mood of service, people facilitate such training of youngsters in culture and values, they encourage people to grow in spiritual life. Where they don't do so, you get the kind of society we have. So Arjuna is making the argument, by destroying family tradition, I'm basically going to reduce society to an individualistic, materialistic, and irresponsible society. Text 43. Utsanna kula dharmana manushyanam janardana narake niyatam vaso bhavati iti anushrama. Translation.
O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I thought by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed will always be.
Okay, so the basic point Arjuna makes here is that anushrama, the last word of that verse. Shushrama means I heard. Anushrama means I've heard from authorities. So Prabhupada says this is not just Arjuna's sentiment, rather this is what he has heard from authoritative sources, which means that there is much more to it than just what he is feeling. It is the experience, it is the realization of people with wisdom. Arjuna bases his argument not on his own personal experience, but on what he has heard from the authorities. That is the way of receiving real knowledge. One cannot reach the real point of factual knowledge without being helped by the right person who is already established in that knowledge. Which means what? That Arjuna is obedient to authority, willing to learn from authority, which is another important quality of someone who is inquiring and wanting to transcend. Because wanting to inquire and transcend means what? One has to be prepared to transform one's heart and change one's heart based on instructions. So his obedience to superiors here is very, very important. Text 44. Aho bata mahat papam kartum yavasita vayam yad raja sukha lobhena hantum swajanamudyata. Translation.
Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy world happiness, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen.
Purport. Driven by selfish motives, one may be inclined to such sinful acts as the killing of one's own brother, father, or mother. There are many such instances in the history of the world. But Arjuna, being a saintly devotee of the Lord, is always conscious of moral principles and therefore takes care to avoid such activities. Thoughtful, with foresight, with introspective. Text 45. Yadi mam apratikaram ashastram shastrapanaya dhartarashtra rane hanyus tanme kshema taram bhavet. Translation. It is better, rather than my also committing a sin, better that, they're going to do what they have to do, better I just don't do anything. Rather than having to kill everybody here, better I just not do anything. So Prabhupada will say, the last sentence of this purport, all these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord. Text 46. Sanjaya hovacha evam uktvarjuna sankye ratopasta hupavishat visrijya sasharam chapam shoka samvigna manasa. Translation.
Sanjaya says, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief.
While observing the situation of his enemy, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so afflicted with lamentation that he sat down again, setting aside his bows and arrows. Such a kind and soft-hearted person in the devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge. Arjuna had made a vow that he would never give up his gun. If anybody told him to drop his Gandiva bow, he would take out his sword and kill that person on the spot. He had stood up, ready to fight. Now, imagine, you stood up, you're ready to fight. You've just gone to see the army. And suddenly, the bow you vowed to never give up, it's slipping from your hand. Your knees buckle, and he's not even able to stand anymore. He's just sitting like this, and, with his head on his lap. He's completely driven to distraction. He's in the crisis, you may say, of his life. A crossroad he's not able to see a solution to. His crossroad is, if I fight, then all of these things are going to happen. I'm going to kill all my relatives, one. I'm going to not be happy myself. I'm going to suffer sinful reactions. I'm going to destroy family traditions and destroy, the prosperity of society, of ladies, because all the men are dead, of all the ladies and of all children who are going to come. And, for what? For what? For me to rule? Why should I rule? Aren't they ruling well enough? This is the fifth reason we will see in the second chapter. Why should I rule? What big thing am I going to do that they're not doing? Let them rule. What is the problem? And I don't know. You're telling me, and I know as a Kshatriya they're not doing things right. As a police officer, I know that I need to apprehend these guys. But if in apprehending a few thugs, I'm going to kill a suburb of people, is that right? Should I just leave them? I mean, they're not doing too badly, are they? Okay, chapter 2. Now, chapter 2 is called Sankhya Yoga. Can I rub this off? Sankhya means categorization. If you'd like, it means a numerical categorization. Of all the elements of matter. Now, why is this important? If I'm going to categorize all the... Can you read it? numerical categorization of all the elements of matter. And to finish the sentence, to find the soul and to find the super soul. And it kind of works like this. If I tell you that your body is made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and I tell you that your mind is different from your body, in fact, your intelligence is also different from your mind. If I tell you that your mind will just accept or reject certain things, your intelligence will provide a sense of discrimination. But then you're able to introspect and see, where am I? I see my body. I see the prana, the ki moving through my body. I see my mind, my intelligence. And I see, the part of me that appears to be a false identification. Where am I? And through this analysis, one is allowed to go deeper into understanding who I actually am. And at its deepest level, who Paramatma is. So it's an enumeration of matter to be able to find the soul and the spirit soul. So therefore it is called Sankhya Yoga. It is an enumeration, a mathematical enumeration of the elements of the material world to connect to the spirit soul and to the super soul. And in that way, connect to Krishna. Now, Prabhupada calls this chapter Contents of the Gita Summarized. The reason he does this is because all the elements of the Gita are discussed in this one chapter. It is a very long chapter. We will take about 5 lessons to go through it. But there are 5 distinct sections in this chapter. Here they are. The first section is from text 1 through to text 10. 1 to 10. The second section is from 12. Sorry. 11 through to about 30. 30. 11 to 30. The third section is from 31 up to 38. The fourth section is from 39 through to 53. And the fifth section is from 54 through to the last verse of the chapter, 72. So in the first section from 1 to 10, which was the topic today, which we will not finish today, but go on to next lesson, is Arjuna completes his lamentation and he will take shelter of Krishna. And he will point out to Krishna that it is not by material adjustment that I can make anything work. Rather, I need a longer-term solution. And there's one really, really, really important verse quoted by our Acharya, Baladev Vidyabhushan, in the 6th verse, in his commentary to the 6th verse of the 2nd chapter, that we will also talk about as we go through. Let's see how much we can go through in 10 minutes. We won't rush it. We will continue on to next class if we don't finish. Text 1. Sanjaya Uvacha Tam Tata Kripaya Vishtam Ashru Purna Kulekshanam Vishidantam Nidam Bhakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha. Translation.
Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words.
Now, here is Prabhupada's purport. It's very interesting. In the previous verse, what did Prabhupada say? In text 45? When Arjuna said, better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Prabhupada said, All these symptoms are due to the soft-heartedness resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord. Now look at the first sentence of Prabhupada's purport. Material compassion and lamentation and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. He's a great devotee, but he's also ignorant. So this is from a difference in perspective. On the one hand, his exhibiting these symptoms is a sign that he's thoughtful, he's introspective, he's thinking longer term, he's ready to surrender to a spiritual master, he's ready to tolerate, ups and downs in his life. Because in the previous verse, it was mentioned that he was ready to beg. Remember that verse? Yes. He was ready to beg in order, if it meant not having to kill all these people. But now, from the point of view of Arjuna being instructed as a disciple, yes, he is compassionate, he has all these good qualities, but it is misdirected. If out of compassion, sometimes you see this, when a person is in their final dying stages, out of compassion, some friends bring, for example, a stripper or some kind of inappropriate movies for this person to see. And it's like, yes, he should enjoy the last days of his life. Are they feeling empathy? Well, they are they not? They are feeling empathy. Is it properly directed? No. It can be better directed. So the quality of empathy is nice, but the direction is wrong. And so Prabhupada will say, they're all signs of the ignorance of the real self. But if this compassion is directed towards proper understanding of the self, then it will actually be complete. Not just spiritually, but emotionally and physically. So here it is. Compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. The word Madhusudana is significant in this verse. Lord Krishna killed the demon Madhu, and now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. No one knows where compassion should be applied. Compassion for the dress of a drowning man is senseless. A man fallen in the ocean of nescience cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. One who does not know this and laments for the outward dress is called a Shudra, or one who laments unnecessarily. One sentence down. Lord Krishna, however, can dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man. And for this purpose, the Bhagavad Gita was sung by him. This chapter instructs us in self-realization by an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul, Sankhya Yoga, as explained by the Supreme Authority, Lord Sri Krishna. This realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive results and is situated in the fixed conception of the real self. So this is called Nishkama Karma Yoga, which is the topic of this chapter, which we will discuss in subsequent verses. But Arjuna's compassion was misplaced. Krishna is going to instruct him in an enumeration of the material elements, more precisely the distinction between body and soul, so that he can learn to find his real self in his material engagement. Text 2. Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva Kashmalam Idam Vishame Samupastitam Anarya Jushtam Asvargyam Akirti Karam Arjuna. This is the first time Krishna is going to speak. And how is he addressed? Why isn't he called Krishna? Shri Krishna Uvacha, Shri Govinda Uvacha, Shri Madhusudana Uvacha. Why is he called Bhagavan?
So that it's getting established. Krishna is the supreme personality of God. It's just like, you said the CEO of the company. Most like, I'm the principal of this club, the designation is just so big. So I think it's just so powerful. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
It's not an ordinary person.
He's not an ordinary person. He's the supreme authority.
Yeah. So it's not just like it is just someone else's opinion. Like you go to a friend, I have this problem, what should I do? It's Krishna himself who is within our heart, who knows the source of our problem and who's going to address it. Now the word Bhagavan, what does it mean? So split the word. So this is called Bhaga and Van. What does the term Bhaga mean? Okay, opulence. Just like they say in India, Bhagyavan, possessing fortune, possessing opulence, possessing auspiciousness. What are the bhagas, or what are the opulences of the Lord?
Knowledge, wealth.
Can you write it down? So the word van means possessing. What does the term Vrindavan mean? Oh, that's a different thing. Sorry, my mistake. Van there means forest. But van here means possessing. So Bhagavan means the Lord who possesses. How many opulences are there? 6. Can someone just speak them out as is being written? Knowledge. Wealth. Beauty. Wait, let someone else say something. Sorry, sir. Knowledge, wealth, beauty. Renunciation. Anybody else? Strength. Fame. So these are the 6 opulences, which means this. Anything we are attracted to. All 6 are there? Thank you. And is it just some knowledge, some beauty, some renunciation?
Unlimited.
Unlimited is the word Prabhupada used. Unlimited beauty, unlimited knowledge, unlimited renunciation. But Krishna possesses all of these things in such a completely complete way. Which means what? Anything that we are attracted to in this world, is there anything on this list that we are attracted to in this world? There's nothing else, right? It contains, therefore Prabhupada says, if at all God is to be addressed by any nomenclature, by any name, that name has to be Krishna. Because all of these qualities imply that Krishna is supremely attractive. There's nobody who can fail to be attracted by Krishna. Which also means that he is a person. You can't just be an effulgent light and be beautiful. All unlimitedly beautiful. Now, can I rub this off? Yes, please. What Prabhupada will describe is an analogy that is important to understand this concept of Bhagavan. How are we going for time? Okay, a couple more minutes. Who has seen this analogy of the sun god, who looks a lot more beautiful than this? And he's really important. So much so that his wife can't even see him. But you have the sun and you have the rays of the sun. So what does Prabhupada compare these rays to? Okay, the Brahmajyoti. Why is it compared to the Brahmajyoti?
I think it makes nothing beyond now.
Well, here the sun rays are the effulgence of the sun. Similarly, the Brahmajyoti is the effulgence of the Lord. Tad Brahma Nishkalam Anantam Asheshadutam. That's in the Brahma Samhita. But it's this bodily effulgence. And then what is the form of the sun compared to? Brahman. No. It has a form. So which aspect of the Lord has a form? Paramatma. And the sun God himself? Bhagavan. So, when you speak about the sun God, you have to speak about the sun globe and the sun rays, right? But when you speak about the sun rays, do you also imply the sun god? Not necessarily. You can say that the sun rays are there, but if you say the sun god, it implies that everything is included. So by the use of the word Bhagavan, the import here is that Krishna is the absolute truth. That he is everything. He includes his original manifestation as the Supreme Lord. He includes his the aspect of him which is present in everybody's heart. And it includes his all-pervading spiritual energy which supports all of spiritual and material existence. And I think we will leave the class here. We will continue the purport to this verse next week. Now, just before we leave, there are some admin details that are important. I think so far we've had 3 registrations. Registrations for the... Oh, sorry. Sorry? One more? So we need to finalize registrations by the end of next class. So after next class, everyone is welcome to attend, but officially the Bhakti Shastri module will be closed. So what this means is that basically you wouldn't be able to get the Bhakti Shastri certificate in this round of doing Bhakti Shastri. So please register with Kate by next week, next Sunday, if possible. Now, for those who have registered, there is a book, Surrender Unto Me, which is now available. It's with me today. Kate will handle all the books. Please go to her. This is an invaluable study guide. It is really, really important. It is a study guide to the Bhagavad Gita. Please make sure that you're reading the verses like that we cover each week, and read it with Surrender Unto Me. Your appreciation and depth of knowledge will be enhanced. It's not sufficient just to hear. My recommendation would be to budget about half an hour a day, between 3.5 to 4 hours each week. Now, as we discussed in that original meeting, we were discussing the concept of, class end questions that we would take away home with us during the week, think about them, and just write out the answers to them. Kind of like a test, but not exactly a test. It's more a manner of knowing what to look for, and then just writing it out so that it's visually possible to remember and assimilate this knowledge. So the first half an hour of next class will be this test, 10 to 10:30. Write today. So if your email addresses are not registered, please give them to Kate. Check with Kate if your email addresses are, she's got a list. Check that your email addresses are there. She will send through today a list of questions for everybody to read the first chapter with, and a test next week. It'll be about 20 minutes. We'll swap papers amongst each other and then just check them there automatically. We'll continue from the next class. We'll continue from 10:30 onwards from where we've stopped. Kate, is there anything more to address?
Just attendance.
Okay, so can everybody just for the first few weeks just come and say hi to Kate, and she'll just mark you off. Anything else? A Gmail group is going to be created once the end of the 5th week will take place. Now all the emails that are here, all the emails will be sent to. After the end of next week, emails will be focused on the group of devotees who have registered for the modules. Anything else to cover off? If devotees would anybody like a Facebook page for the Bhakti Shastri group? You'd like it? Does anybody have the expertise to be able to create one? Okay. 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 So you can please work with Kate Mataji, if you'd like, in creating a Facebook page. Okay. Are there any other questions? Anyway, class is over. Okay. Prasadam is to be served. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So I can do the registration during lunch, so please my registration.
I'll ask a question.
Sure. I'll just finish off the class. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai.